only be great, but be a good person, spread the gospel, give people something to believe in, and just show that if you give your best, it's good enough. I feel like people in life are so hard on themselves. You give your best and you come up short, and people just want to give up all the time. It's like, give your best. Don't worry about what outsiders who have not worked for nothing have to say, and focus on delivering your best. And that's all I've ever done, is give my best. And I have been okay with that. I gave my best in MMA, and I lost the fight. I lost the fight in MMA, but I gave my best. And the only way I was able to live with that fight and that loss is because I know I gave my best in training camp. I gave my best in the fight. I had 8 stitches taken on my head 3 days before the fight. But hey, I gave my best. And if you give your best, and that's to anybody in here, if you give your best, whether you come up short or not, it's okay. Do it again.
In the middle of showing off her situationship with Papoose, Claressa Shields ended up flipping the entire narrative, and not in her favor. What was meant to look like a power move quickly turned into something that raised eyebrows across the internet. Instead of strengthening her image, it seemed to backfire, not only on her but on Papoose as well. His reaction, though subtle, spoke volumes. It was clear he wasn't feeling that The Breakfast Club interview, not even a little bit. And honestly, it wasn't hard to see why. During the conversation, Claressa hinted at his financial situation without directly saying it. She spoke confidently about what he pays for, how he provides, and the ways he takes care of her. Even without naming specifics, the message came across loud and clear, and it didn't sit right with a lot of people. But things didn't stop there. She went a step further by bringing up Layla Ali again, almost as if there was some kind of ongoing competition. That moment felt unnecessary and, to many, came off as bitter. Layla had already called her out in the past for not telling the full story, so revisiting that topic only added more tension. It gave the impression that Claressa hadn't moved on and was still holding on to something personal. From the outside, it looked like Papoose was paying close attention to all of this, and possibly feeling uncomfortable. The repeated mentions, the comparisons, and the tone of the conversation didn't exactly help his image either. Then came another appearance on The Breakfast Club, and this time, things really started to spiral. Claressa once again spoke openly about her relationship with a married man, presenting it in a way that felt almost celebratory. That's where the public reaction shifted. What might have once been curiosity turned into criticism. She continued by sharing details about a birthday party she threw for Papoose earlier that month. At first, it sounded lighthearted, a fun story involving a card game where he had to choose between 2 mystery options, $1,000 or $10,000. He picked the $1,000, only to later find out he had missed out on the larger amount. According to Claressa, he didn't take it well. She described him as genuinely upset about missing the $10,000 option. That detail alone caught people's attention, and not in a good way. It raised questions almost immediately. Then Charlemagne Tha God stepped in with a question that shifted the entire conversation. He asked whether sharing stories like that might lead people to assume Papoose was only with her for financial reasons. It was a fair question, and one that clearly struck a nerve. In response, Claressa tried to flip the narrative quickly. She began listing all the things Papoose allegedly pays for: her mortgage, her car note, her insurance, even flights. The intention may have been to show that he contributes and provides, but instead, it made the situation feel even more complicated. Rather than clearing things up, it added more confusion. On one hand, she was describing a man who handles major financial responsibilities. On the other, she had just shared a story about him being visibly upset over missing out on $10,000. To many people watching, those two images didn't quite align. And that's where the conversation really took off. People started questioning the consistency of the narrative. If someone is truly covering all those expenses, why react so strongly over a missed $10,000 opportunity? The math simply didn't add up, and once that doubt set in, everything else began to unravel. In trying to defend the relationship, Claressa may have unintentionally exposed more than she intended. That's often how these situations play out. Once something is said publicly, it takes on a life of its own. Every detail gets analyzed, every statement gets dissected, and the story becomes bigger than the people involved. Adding another layer to the situation is the reality that Papoose still has other responsibilities and commitments. That context makes everything even more complicated. When you factor in those obligations, the public display of this relationship becomes harder for people to accept without question. And at the center of it all is perception. The way the relationship is being presented, confidently, publicly, and without much acknowledgement of its complexity, has caused many to push back. For some, it's not just about the details, it's about the principle. Because at the end of the day, one thing keeps coming up: pride. The way Claressa has been speaking about the relationship gives the impression that she's standing firmly in it, unapologetically. But for many observers, that confidence doesn't land the way it's intended. Especially when the situation involves someone who is still legally tied to another person. As people have pointed out repeatedly, being separated is not the same as being divorced. Those are two very different realities, and trying to blur that line only adds to the confusion. You can't present something like that as completely normal and expect people not to question it, especially when the details don't fully align. And that's exactly why the conversation isn't slowing down anytime soon. And when you really start comparing this situation to others, it begins to stand out even more. In many high-profile cases, once a divorce is truly set in motion, things tend to move quickly. Papers get filed, agreements are reached, and within months, everything is finalized. Of course, every case is different, but still, there's usually visible progress. Here, though, the timeline feels different. It's been said that this situation involving Papoose and Remy Ma has been dragging on for over 2 years. Yet there doesn't seem to be much clarity about where things actually stand. And while the common defense is that he filed for divorce, filing doesn't necessarily mean resolution. It doesn't guarantee closure or even active movement toward it. What makes people question things even more is how that filing reportedly came about. It didn't appear to be a smooth, mutual decision. Instead, it seemed to follow public pressure and online conversations. And even after that step, there hasn't been much visible progress. Naturally, that leaves people wondering whether things are really moving forward, or just being framed that way. When you look at other public figures with far more complicated financial situations and assets, many of them still manage to finalize divorces relatively quickly. So, it's understandable why people are asking questions here. If this process was truly a priority, wouldn't it have been resolved by now? Or at least closer to resolution? And this is where another layer comes in: perception. From the outside, it can start to look like pride is playing a role in how everything is being presented. Claressa Shields has been very vocal about her success, her finances, and what she brings to the table. But sometimes, that kind of messaging doesn't land the way it's intended. Often, when someone is truly secure, they don't feel the need to repeatedly emphasize it. It tends to show naturally in how they move rather than what they say. At the same time, there's the ongoing spotlight on her relationship with a man who is still legally tied to someone else. That situation keeps being pushed into the public eye as something positive, while criticism is met with strong responses. To some observers, that comes across less like confidence and more like something being over-explained. Because if everything were as solid as it's being presented, there likely wouldn't be this much need to defend it. There wouldn't be repeated explanations about what he does, how he acts, or what the relationship means. When something is stable, it usually speaks for itself. One moment that really stood out to people was when Claressa spoke publicly about Papoose's financial contributions. His reaction suggested he wasn't entirely comfortable with that level of detail being shared. That alone hinted at a disconnect. If both people were fully aligned, there likely wouldn't be tension around what gets said publicly. And that brings things back to a bigger issue: oversharing. When someone feels the need to prove a relationship to the public, it can lead to revealing more than intended. Private details become public talking points, and once that happens, the narrative can spiral beyond control. That's exactly what seemed to happen after their appearance on The Breakfast Club. Clips circulated online showing them leaving the studio, and people quickly picked up on their body language. They weren't walking together closely. There was visible distance between them. No small gestures, no clear connection, just space. For many viewers, that moment said more than any interview could. Body language often reveals what words don't, and in this case, it didn't align with the confident picture that had been painted publicly. Then things became even more layered when Remy Ma appeared at Cardi B's sold-out concert in New York just a couple of days later. She was very visible, posting photos, sharing moments, and being acknowledged publicly. Not long after, Papoose posted from the same event. That's when the internet really started connecting dots. People immediately noticed the overlap and began questioning what it meant. Comments flooded in, with many pointing out that the situation didn't look like a finalized separation. Even if his post was just a repost, as some explanations suggested, it still raised eyebrows. The timing alone made it difficult for people to ignore. From another perspective, some interpreted his actions as a subtle response, a way of reclaiming control after his personal business had been discussed publicly. Whether intentional or not, it added another layer of complexity to an already confusing situation. What's interesting is the pattern people are starting to notice. Every time the relationship is presented in a highly polished or celebratory way, something seems to happen that shifts the narrative. A new detail emerges, a reaction goes viral, or a moment raises questions. It creates a cycle: presentation, backlash, explanation, and then repeat. And that cycle is what keeps people engaged. It starts to feel less like a single situation and more like an ongoing story unfolding in real time. At the same time, the responses, especially in comments or direct messages, have also played a role. When those responses come across as defensive or emotional, they can sometimes amplify the situation instead of calming it. That matters, especially when public image is involved. Brands, audiences, and platforms all pay attention to how people handle pressure. Reactions that feel unfiltered or reactive can influence how opportunities are viewed moving forward. At its core, though, the main issue remains simple. Being separated is not the same as being divorced. No matter how it's framed, that distinction doesn't disappear. And as long as that line remains unclear, people are likely to keep questioning everything surrounding it. In the end, this situation continues to raise more questions than answers. Every new moment adds another layer instead of providing clarity. And perhaps that's why so many people are still watching closely, trying to figure out what's really going on beneath the surface.